our honour and privilege to be able to present on our country, Aotearoa, New Zealand. What we've done is we've split it up into 3 sections. So we're going to go past, present, and then future. So we're going to take you through a bit of a journey through time. And yeah, so let's go to the next slide. So every country has their own kind of creation stories. And Aotearoa, New Zealand also has one. It comes from the Māori culture, and it's in 3 parts. There is te kore, te pō, and te ao marama. The first one, te kore, is about the potential for things to come. The 3rd section is te pō, and that is the darkness on the existence of things that are coming. And the last part is te ao marama, which is it's like the world of enlightenment. And with this world of enlightenment came the creations of the heavens, the earth, and of people. Next slide. And this guy here, his name is Maui, and we share stories of Maui still today, where he pulled up New Zealand with his famous fish hook. Life in Aotearoa, before humans came, there was a utopia in the South Pacific where there was big trees, everything grew big, the animals, the plants, and also scientists called it the land of megafauna, where everything grew giant. We have animals that you might have heard of before. There's the moa, which is up the top left. It's the biggest bird in the world to ever exist. It's extinct now. On the top right, there is the hukioi, which is the giant eagle, or the haast eagle. It is the biggest flying bird to ever exist. On the bottom left, we have the tuatara, and this animal still exists today. It's like a dinosaur living with us in New Zealand. And then the bottom right, it looks scary, but he's our friend, and his name is the weta. When we look at our land and our oceans and our seas, we're still reminded of our rich history.
Click. So roughly 1,000 years after Maui pulled up our island, Kuramarotini and Kupe rediscovered our islands, exclaiming in the well-known phrase, click. He ao, te aroa, a cloud, a long white cloud. Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud. I know, right? Sounds good on Māori, eh? Some of Kupe and Kuramarotini's descendants and people remained in Aotearoa while the rest returned to Hawaii, the elusive homeland, telling stories of a land far away. Click. Click. Well, back. Yep. What followed was roughly 300 years of intentional voyages to Aotearoa. Click. They followed, I don't know if you can see it there, but it's constellation mapped out. They followed Maui's route, following Maui's fish hook in the setting sun, te matau a Maui. And there's Aotearoa. And I'll talk more about this in my PY seminar later on. Using the stars, the sun, the moon, the planets, the wind, the currents, the swells, the birds, the whales, the whole natural environment, our ancestors explored and covered the deepest and furthest reaches of the biggest ocean in the world, the Pacific Ocean. For example, click. These arrows here just show a tiny fraction of what our ancestors did, and we're glad to share this history with Tonga and Fiji as well. Click. Following the Great Voyage was a period of about 750 years. of Pacific Islanders living in Aotearoa and in this beautiful environment. Building structures intricate in design and patterns and carvings. Māori, we are and still are arranged under whānau or family units, hapu or tribal units, iwi or nation units, and waka or ship units. Māori had sovereignty over all that they treasured. Thank you.
So as Tawhana mentioned, Māori, the indigenous people of Aotearoa, were in control of their self-determination and had full control of their hapu, their tribes, and had their full rights. So this here describes what Māori pre-colonial history looked like. Māori had full control of Aotearoa. This bus here describes our nation. So around 1820, with the increased arrival of the Europeans, especially Her Majesty the Queen Victoria, in line with our Māori customs of manaakitanga, caring for each other, being hospitable to visitors, we invited the Queen to enter into a treaty known as Te Tiriti or Waitangi, one of the things that Aotearoa is famous for, because it recognises in a constitutional document that Māori have sovereignty of their nations. So here, Māori enter into an agreement where there was the understanding that Māori would have full self-determination and control, and the Queen would have control of her settled British subjects. As the years went on, unfortunately, this changed. The Queen assumed sovereignty over New Zealand through the act of colonisation, and Māori lost full control, and as a result, Māori experienced racism, poor the lowest statistics in New Zealand, marginalisation, loss of culture and customs. However, over the years, we invited the likes of Fiji, India, and Japan. And that brings our multicultural nation in which we live in at the moment. And it's perceived as harmoniously, but unfortunately Māori are still at the bottom of every statistics. So these are some of the effects of colonisation. But as a result, Māori are known as warriors, and the history of uprising, Māori Renaissance period. You have Māori protests to reclaim their rights and to be recognised. And that's one of the things that we are famous for around the world, is that we are the most advanced indigenous colonised peoples in the world, and that's something that we are really proud of, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. Some of the other things that we are proud of is the first women's vote, nuclear weapon free, and of course with Tonga we are proud of Stephen Adams.
Alright, present day New Zealand, but there's a lot that New Zealand is known for. For example, the haka, Lord of the Rings, the kiwi bird, and also Helen Clark, which is the head of the UNDP at the moment, which is cool.
So the four main sectors of New Zealand is agriculture, dairy, timber and tourism. About 3.5 million people come to New Zealand annually to see free tourism, and it contributes about $10.8 billion to our economy. So a huge sector way Quebec. It doesn't matter. So there is a lot of positive impacts of tourism, because it kind of encourages people to see beautiful scenery and implement conservation in their own backyard. But there's also a lot of negative impacts. So with increased people comes more pollution, but Quebec. As you can see in this photo here, here's a run-over penguin. So it's really putting a lot of harm in our wildlife, but also the natural landscape is being destroyed. So, in terms of conservation, as Matt was saying, a lot of our wildlife before colonization was birds and was quite safe. There wasn't much predators, but with the arrival of Europeans came rats, and so they decided to introduce stoats and ferrets and other predators, which instead of eliminating the rat population, they started taking out our native flora and fauna. So what's happening at the moment with conservation is we're killing a lot. So we're trying to get rid of all of these pests, all of these predators to preserve our native species. It's also a lot of replanting native trees and re-establishing the way that the environment was before colonisation. Now, with climate change, New Zealand is known for a good land to population ratio, so we have the opportunity to be leaders in responding to climate change. But as you can see by this graph here, our clean and green image is kind of superficial. So we're actually third in the greenhouse gas emission per capita. So that kind of is because of our agriculture. So our agriculture kind of contributes about 49% of total greenhouse gas emission for our country, and that's quite scary for us. The government just put in a 48.5 million into research to try and reduce that emissions. So that's what our country's doing at the moment. Next.
Cool. So transitioning from the physical environment to our social environment, we're very fortunate to have a very diverse country. So a lot of our values instilled in our society come from where everyone is from. So a lot of the big things that we can discuss as individuals right now, gay marriage is a big, I wouldn't say issue, but it's a big topic in New Zealand. On the 17th of April in 2013, the gay marriage bill was passed in our parliament. Education is very important. We have the freedom and the choice to be able to go to university, to study, to get degrees, and we're very fortunate to do that. Religion and spirituality, as I mentioned before, because we're so ethnically diverse, a lot of our values contribute towards our attitudes towards problems in society. Mental health is another point of reference in our country. A lot of youth and a lot of what we do as SWAI leaders is making sure that people are emotionally stable, they're looked after, they're okay, to prevent the last point up there, which is suicide rates. Unfortunately, a lot of our youth, a lot of our rangatahi, encounter depression and other problems which causes them, to unfortunately commit suicide. It's very unfortunate, but that's where we come into the situation, to be able to alleviate the problems.
So in New Zealand, we have 4.47 million people. The majority, just over 70%, is European. Then we have Māori, Pacific Island, Asian, Middle Eastern, and other ethnicity. The New Zealander category was actually put in the 2006 census, because in 2001, most people were starting to identify themselves as New Zealanders rather than European. So that says a little bit more about our changing ways of how we think of ourselves and our identity. The New Zealand response to the refugee crisis is important. We accept 750 refugees per year, and it's been like that since 1987. The government's response was to accept 600 Syrian refugees over a 2-year period, and so it's definitely a good sign, but there's been a lot of rallying in different political parties to increase the quota to 1,500. You can go next. So these are the aftermath of the Canterbury earthquake. So I live in Christchurch, so I was affected by this experience, and there's been a lot of housing damage. 170,000 houses were damaged. There's about 3/4 of the housing stock in Canterbury. Okay, thank you.
New Zealand's in a housing crisis. So our prices have risen 60% over the past few years, and it's very bad next. We also have poverty. We have the fastest growing inequality rate over the past 30 years of the developed world next. We also have bad Māori statistics, overrepresentation in the prison population, and almost every other negative statistic. But we are working towards retribalisation, which is a very big, complex scheme, I suppose, towards equitising social life in New Zealand.
Yeah, sorry if I'm going heaps over time. So what does this mean for the future for New Zealand? The future of New Zealand, like, is pretty uncertain. However, we kind of believe that we are the people who will dictate the future path of our country. And currently we've got like a few goals for the future. One of them is we're going to be smoke-free by 2025, so no more cigarettes in New Zealand. Committing to Māori education in schools and sort of bringing that culture in and this stuff.
Working towards eradicating pests and revitalising our native plants and wildlife, and continuing to work with our government and non-government partners to increase more refugees into New Zealand.
We also aim to uphold our image as a nuclear-free nation, as well as committing to the goals that New Zealand signed on to with the Paris Climate Change Agreement. But finally, on top of all of that, as individuals, we all have our own hopes and dreams for the nation.
My hopes and dreams for Aotearoa New Zealand is that every single person, man, woman, boy or girl is functioning to their full potential, using their gifts and strengths that I've been blessed with.
My dream for New Zealand is a true, clean and green country that is both pest-free and fossil fuel-free.
I advocate for constitutional transformation for the liberation and reclamation of our Indigenous rights. Māori mana motuhake.
My hopes and dreams for New Zealand are that the youth recognise the importance of political contribution for our nation and for all nations.
That one day in the future, New Zealand will have equal diversity across positions of power.
My hopes and dreams for New Zealand is that we prioritise the health outcomes of Māori and Pacifica people to address the inequality in our health system.
My hope for New Zealand is that young people begin to assert themselves culturally and that they learn to understand who they are as individuals.
I wish that New Zealand would increase its contribution to humanitarian aid, peacekeeping and peace building overseas.
I dream of Aotearoa that lives and breathes its values.
My hope for the future of New Zealand is sustainable economic prosperity for the benefit of all.
My hopes and dreams for New Zealand is an inclusive society where there are opportunities for all to grow and flourish.
I dream of a future in Aotearoa where young people can be strong in their roots, confident in their present, so that we can thrive forward into the future.
I am Aotearoa.
I am Aotearoa.
And I am Aotearoa.
I am Aotearoa.
I am Aotearoa.
I am Aotearoa.
I am Aotearoa.